Every small town in America has its own monster, a creature born from fear, whispered about by firelight. But in the dark woods of Prince George's County, Maryland, there's one legend that refuses to die. Locals call him the Goatman. It began in the 1950s, near the quiet town of Beltsville. A government facility called the Agricultural Research Center ran experiments on animals. The story says, a scientist there mixed human DNA with a goat, and what he created escaped. They say he fled into the woods, half man, half beast, carrying a fire axe. And ever since, people have gone missing along Governor Bridge Road. The first reports came from couples parked in the woods. They'd hear scratching sounds on the roof of their cars, heavy breathing, and when they drove off, they'd find deep claw marks on the metal. In the 1970s, a man found his pet dog decapitated near the woods. Police called it an animal attack, but the locals knew better. They'd seen a tall, horned figure watching from the trees, glowing red eyes and a smell like rotting meat in the air. On November 12, 1971, the Washington Post ran a real story. A group of teens claimed a creature with horns had attacked a dog near Bowie, Maryland. When police arrived, they actually found the body. No footprints, no clues, just the remains and the smell of blood. That same week, construction workers reported a 7-foot figure with an axe, covered in white hair, standing at the edge of the forest. By then, the name was born, the Goatman. Over time, stories grew darker. Campers said they heard their own names whispered from the woods, but no one else was there. Some said he could mimic voices, luring people into the forest before killing them. Even hunters found trees clawed and bones arranged in strange patterns on the ground. They say, if you hear a goat bleeding deep in those woods, don't go looking. It's not a goat, it's him. In 1973, a teenage couple parked on Governor's Bridge late one night. They heard something brush against the car, then silence. The boy stepped out to check and never came back. The girl sat frozen until she heard a metal scraping above her. When police found the car the next morning, they saw deep gashes across the roof and blood dripping from the door. Even today, witnesses report strange figures in those woods. Hikers hear footsteps that match their own. Drivers say their headlights catch something massive crossing the road on 2 legs. One paranormal team recorded a low growl that no animal expert could identify. They left their equipment running overnight, and in the morning, all they found was a single hoof print burned into the soil. No one knows what the Goatman really is. A failed experiment? A demon? Or just the woods playing tricks on our fear? But everyone in Maryland knows the warning. Don't drive through Governor's Bridge after midnight. Don't stop your car. And if you hear bleeding behind you, run, because sometimes the old stories are true. In the heart of Yogyakarta, there's a bridge everyone knows, Jembatan Gondolayu. By day, it's crowded, ordinary, full of noise and light. But at night, when the streets go silent and the river beneath turns black, locals say something else walks that bridge. They call her the ghost of Gondolayu. The story began decades ago, when the bridge was still new and nurses from the nearby hospital walked home alone after night shifts. One of them, Solastri, never made it home. A thief attacked her under the bridge. She screamed. He panicked and threw her into the river. The next morning, they found her, floating, her white uniform torn, her eyes still open. No one claimed her body. She was buried near the riverbank, under a small stone that still stands there today. Years later, a police sergeant named Pac Hardo was heading home from duty. It was past midnight and the rain fell heavily. As he neared the bridge, his headlight caught sight of a woman standing alone by the roadside. Her white uniform glowed in the mist. Her long hair hung wet over her face. She raised her hand gently and said, "Sir, may I come with you?" "I want to go home." He nodded and let her climb onto his bike. The air turned cold, colder than the rain. They rode together through the night. The woman stayed silent until they reached the middle of Gondolayu Bridge. Then she tapped his shoulder softly. He slowed the bike, turned his head, and saw no one behind him. The rain poured, but on his shoulder a bloody handprint, still fresh. He heard sobbing echoing from below the bridge, faint but real. When he shone his flashlight down at the river, no one was there. Only ripples are spreading slowly across the dark water. After that night, the whole neighborhood talked about it. The bridge became a forbidden crossing after dark. Fishermen said they saw a woman in white walking by the edge, barefoot, her face hidden. Sometimes she floated, not walked, above the river. Drivers said they hit a woman on the road, but when they stopped, there was no body, just a faint scent of jasmine and hospital, antiseptic in the air. In 2005, a delivery driver passed the bridge near midnight. He saw her again, the same woman, waving for a ride. When she climbed onto his bike, the temperature dropped instantly. He looked in the mirror and saw her smiling, even though her head was bowed. Panic struck. He sped up, but the bike grew heavier and heavier. Then, right before he crossed the bridge, she whispered into his ear, "Thank you for taking me home." He turned around, and the seat was empty. But in the mirror, her reflection was still there, smiling. Security cameras from nearby shops have caught strange shapes on the bridge. A blurry female figure standing still, disappearing in the next frame. Taxi drivers report meters activating on their own near the bridge. Pedestrians hear footsteps following them. But when they turn, there's no one there. And sometimes a faint voice calls out from the river, "Sir, may I come with you?" Today, people still leave flowers and candles by the bridge for the nurse who never made it home. Some say she's finally at peace. Others say she's still looking for the man who took her life. But everyone in Yogyakarta knows, if you cross Jembatan Gondolayu after midnight and see a woman in white standing alone, don't stop. Don't speak. And don't look in your mirror. Because once she rides with you, she never really gets off. On the morning of October 19, 1987, two trains collided on a quiet stretch of track in Bintaro, South Jakarta. Hundreds of passengers were on their way to work, and within seconds, their lives were over. It became one of Indonesia's deadliest rail disasters, a scene of twisted steel, fire, and death. But what makes it unforgettable is what people began to see after. It was a Monday morning. A packed local train from Rangkas Bitung was heading into Jakarta, while another train from Tanah Abang was heading out. Due to a signal failure and miscommunication, both trains were mistakenly allowed to enter the same track. At 7 a.m., they met, head-on, in a violent collision that shook the ground. The sound was heard miles away. Steel tore through carriages like paper. Dozens were trapped, crushed, or burned alive as rescuers fought to reach them. The air filled with smoke, screams, and silence. Official reports listed 156 dead, but locals who helped pull bodies from the wreck say the number was higher. When the fire was finally put out, the railway line was littered with wreckage and pieces of lives that would never continue. Shoes, school bags, photographs, and office IDs. In the following days, volunteers from nearby Pisanggrahan village came to help clean up. But as night fell, they began noticing something strange. A smell of burning flesh would return every evening, even after all debris was cleared. Dogs barked toward the tracks without reason, and workers said they heard crying from the darkness. At first, they thought it was trauma, until they saw the figures. One night, a railway guard walking his route saw a group of people standing near the tracks. He called out, "Hey, you can't be here." No one replied. They just stood, motionless, facing the wreck site. When he stepped closer, his flashlight flickered and the group was gone. Only footprints in the mud remained. A few days later, a passing train driver reported seeing people waving frantically near the rails at dawn, their clothes torn and stained red. He pulled the emergency brake, thinking there'd been another accident. But when he stopped, there was no one there. Residents of Bintaro began avoiding the tracks after dark. They said if you pass by around 2 or 3 a.m., you might see figures walking along the line, as if searching for something. Some carry bags, others hold tickets, and 1 or 2 are missing parts of their body. Motorists driving parallel to the tracks sometimes glance to the side and see passengers sitting inside invisible trains, staring blankly out of the air. Locals started calling them the ghost train of Bintaro. Years later, a retired railway worker named Pak Tono gave an interview. He said he once stayed overnight near the site to guard equipment. Around midnight, he heard the sound of a train approaching, but according to the schedule, there shouldn't have been one. He stepped out, lantern in hand, and saw a full train roaring past him. Its windows glowed faintly. Inside, he could see passengers sitting in silence, some staring back at him. Then, it vanished. No wind, no vibration, just the faint sound of a whistle fading into the distance. He quit the job the following week. Every year, on the anniversary of the disaster, people still gather by the tracks. They light candles, leave flowers, and pray for the victims. Locals believe that these souls, restless from the sudden violent death, still walk the railway, looking for their way home. Priests and shamans have performed rituals to cleanse the area, but each time, witnesses say the cries return a few weeks later. And to this day, railway staff report strange power surges, signal lights that turn red for no reason, and radio chatter that picks up voices whispering in languages no one understands. Even now, 30 years later, drivers passing through Bintaro claim to see phantom lights along the line, moving at full speed, then vanishing midair. One commuter recorded video from a passing train, a white shadow floating alongside, keeping pace before disappearing. Railway workers still leave offerings of rice and incense on the tracks every October, a simple prayer to the spirits still trapped in the place where they died. The Bintaro collision changed Indonesian railway history forever. But for those who live nearby, the tragedy never ended. They say if you walk the tracks after midnight, you can still hear the sound of wheels grinding over steel and see faces in the dark, people who never reached their destination. So if you ever find yourself near Bintaro and hear a train whistle when there shouldn't be one, don't look back, because the train you hear isn't meant for the living.